There is a difference between a man who has given up and a man who has been made to look like he has. Most people cannot tell them apart. Most people walk past both of them on the same sidewalk and feel the same thing, or feel nothing, and keep moving. The man who sat across from me on that stage on a Wednesday morning in Atlanta was the second kind, and by the time I figured that out, I had already decided what I was going to do about it. I have been a black man in America for 67 years. I have watched what this country does to the men it decides it no longer needs, slowly, the way a tide goes out, so gradual you don't notice until the shore is bare. Men who deserved better. Men who gave everything this country asked of them and came back to find the country had moved on and didn't leave a forwarding address. But this one was different. This one sat down in front of 200 people and told me the truth. And the truth was so plain and so devastating that for a moment I forgot I was on television. 3 things today. What I saw when Raymond walked onto that stage, what happened when he said those 6 words into a live microphone, and what I did, not what the show did, what I did, in the 47 seconds after those words left his mouth. But before any of that, if you have ever looked at someone who served this country and felt the rage of knowing they came home to less than they left, subscribe right now and turn on the bell. This story does not end the way you think it ends. You need to hear all of it. My stage manager's name is Darnell. He has been with me for 11 years. 11 years of that quiet knock on the dressing room door that means something is going on out there I need to know about. Darnell is not an alarmist. In 11 years, he has knocked for a real reason every single time. He knocked about 30 minutes before we started taping. He said, "Steve. Family 1. The contestant they brought in as a last-minute ad. His name is Raymond. He came in alone. No family with him. He told the segment coordinator he was playing for his granddaughter's school supplies. I said, "Okay." Darnell said, "His shoes, Steve." I looked at him. He said, "His shoes are held together with electrical tape. Around the toe box. Somebody taped them before he came in. Did it careful, like they were trying to make it not look like it was there." I said, "Who brought him in?" Darnell said, "A Veterans Outreach Coordinator. She drove him herself. He didn't have a ride." I nodded. Darnell nodded back. Neither of us said the thing we were both thinking, because some things you don't say out loud until you have to. Raymond walked out, and my first thought was, that man has spent his whole life making himself take up the right amount of space. Not too much, not too little. Exactly the right amount, the way men from a certain generation were trained to, by the military, by their fathers, by a country that told them dignity was something you maintained regardless of what was happening to you on the inside. He was 63 years old. 6 feet tall, or had been once, he carried a slight forward lean now, the kind that comes not from age but from the weight of things. He had on a button-down shirt the color of a late afternoon sky, clean, pressed. Someone had stood at an ironing board and made sure that shirt had a crease before Raymond walked onto my stage. That ironed shirt told me more about Raymond than anything he said in the next 40 minutes. He had a veteran's pin on the collar, small, gold, the kind you don't buy for yourself. His hands, when he shook mine, were the hands of a man who had worked outdoors for 30 years. Calloused, steady, the handshake of someone who learned to shake hands before he learned to drive. He smiled at me. Not the smile of a man who is happy, the smile of a man who has decided to be gracious. Not performing. Worse than performing. Enduring, I said, "Raymond, welcome to Family Feud." He said, "Thank you, sir. It's an honor to be here. Sir. He called me sir. And something in my chest moved that I had not expected. The game started, and Raymond was good. I want you to hear that. He was quick on that buzzer the way combat veterans often are. Reflex, instinct. A body trained to respond before the mind catches up. He had a dry wit. One-liners that arrived so quietly they hit the audience 3 seconds later. And then the room erupted. His teammates loved him. The younger ones kept looking over at him, leaning in when he spoke. He was the elder, even on a game show. And for those few minutes I watched Raymond stop enduring and start being. The crease came out of his forehead. His shoulders dropped 1/2 inch. His smile changed, not the gracious one, the real one, crinkled all the way up to his eyes. The crowd cheered for Raymond. And Raymond, this 63-year-old man in a pressed shirt with electrical tape on his shoes, looked out at those 200 people, and something moved across his face I don't have a precise word for. I think it was the shock of being seen. We were between rounds when it happened. I walked over to Raymond. I said, "Raymond, you are having yourself a day, my friend." He said, "Yes, sir. That real smile again. I'm enjoying myself. I haven't had a day like this in a while." I said, "What are you going to do with that money if your family wins today?" He looked at me. Not away from me. At me. And he said, in a voice that was completely steady, not one drop of performance or pity-seeking in it, the voice of a man simply reporting a fact to another man, "I haven't eaten in 2 days. I'm going to eat." 6 words. Live television. 200 people. Dead silence. Not polite silence. Not the silence of a crowd waiting for a punchline. The silence of 200 people suddenly understanding that the man who had just made them laugh, who had just made them cheer, who had shaken their hand and called the host sir, that man had not eaten in 2 days. The silence of realizing you had been sitting in your seat eating a granola bar from your purse while this man stood 15 feet away and had not eaten since Monday. I heard a woman in the 3rd row make a sound. Just one sound. And then she stopped herself. I stood there. The cameras kept rolling. Live television doesn't pause. I stood there for what the producers later told me was 19 seconds. Before I tell you what I said, if you believe that the men and women who served this country deserve to come home to something, hit that subscribe button right now. Not for me. For Raymond. For every Raymond out there. Then stay right here, because what happened in those next 47 seconds is the part nobody expected. Including me. 19 seconds. I have seen the tape. 3 things moved through me. The first was the performer. I know the moves, the warm pivot, the redirect, the gracious acknowledgement that keeps the show moving. I had all of those available. I did not use them, because I looked at Raymond and thought, if I smooth this over, I am doing to him exactly what the world has been doing to him. I am making his truth convenient for everyone else in the room. I was not willing to do that. The second was my father. He worked at the Ford plant in Cleveland for 32 years. He came home every night with it on him. The oil, the heat, the exhaustion of a man doing something that will never have his name on it. He never complained. But one evening I was about 12, sitting at the kitchen table, and he came in and sat down and was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Steve, you know what the worst thing a man can do to another man is?" I said I didn't know. Pretend not to see him. A man can survive being poor. A man can survive being hungry. But when you look through a man like he is not there, like he is furniture, that is the thing that breaks a person. That is the thing that takes a man apart from the inside. He went into the kitchen and made dinner. We never talked about it again. But I have carried that conversation for 55 years. The third was Raymond, a veteran, a grandfather who had gotten up that morning, put on a pressed shirt, let someone tape his shoes, and gotten into a car driven by a stranger to come on a game show and win money to eat. He told me the truth without performing it, without making it dramatic. He answered my question the way a man with dignity answers a question, plain, steady, without apology. He gave me his truth. I was going to honor it. I made a decision. I did not redirect. I did not pivot. I did not perform for the room. I looked at Raymond and I said, quietly, the way my father said things when he meant them all the way down, Raymond, we are going to fix that. Right now. Before this show goes 1 minute further. I did not raise my voice. I did not point at anyone. I turned to the side production table and said, get him a meal. A real one. Right now. Whatever he wants. Then I turned back to Raymond. He was looking at me the way a man looks when he is trying to figure out if something is real. I said, I mean it. We are not taping another second until you have eaten. You have my word on that. And then I did the thing I truly believe mattered most. I did not walk away from him. I stayed right there, close enough that he could speak without raising his voice. And I said, how long have you been out? He said, 14 months. I said, where are you staying? He told me. I am not going to repeat what he told me, because it belongs to him. But what he told me in the next 3 minutes, standing on that stage while 200 people sat very still and the cameras kept rolling, it was the story of a man who had done everything right. Enlisted at 19. Served 2 tours. Came home. Worked. Raised a family. And then the sequence of things that happens to too many of them. The injury. The system that was supposed to help and didn't. The divorce, the slow erosion of everything he had built. He didn't tell it as a tragedy. He told it the way a man reports the weather. These are the facts. This is what the situation is. That steadiness, that quiet, unwavering, undecorated dignity in the middle of circumstances that would have broken most people, that is the thing I will never stop thinking about. The crowd was completely silent the whole time he spoke. Not uncomfortable silence. Not silence that wants this to be over. The silence of people who are finally hearing something true. The kind a room gets when it recognizes, all at once, that it has been asleep and someone just turned on a light. Share this with one person who needs to be reminded that the men who served this country deserve to be seen. One share. Then come right back. Because what happened after the cameras stopped is the part Raymond asked if he could know about. We did not finish taping that day. We stopped. We fed Raymond. Then we sat. Me, Raymond, Darnell, our executive producer Linda, and the outreach coordinator who had driven him, Miss Patricia, in the green room for 2 hours. I will not share all of what was said. Some of it belongs to Raymond. But I will tell you what I came away with. Raymond had a granddaughter. 8 years old. Aaliyah, she lived with Raymond's daughter in Decatur and was starting 3rd grade in 3 weeks. She needed school supplies. That, not food for himself, not a bed, not anything for himself, was what Raymond had come on that game show to win money for. School supplies for a 3rd grader named Aaliyah. That was what a man who hadn't eaten in 2 days was trying to fix. I sat with that for a long time. I think about it still. Linda, our executive producer, made some calls. I am not going to overstate my role in what followed. Linda deserves the credit. By the time Raymond and Miss Patricia got up to leave, certain things had been arranged. A temporary housing placement, a connection to a veterans services organization, a follow-up appointment, and a gift card. Linda put it on the table and said, "This is from the show. For groceries." Enough for a while. Raymond looked at it, picked it up, held it the way you hold something you don't entirely trust is real yet. Then he looked up and said, "And I am not going to pretend I did not feel this in my chest. I don't know how to thank people anymore. I forgot how to do that." I said, "You don't have to thank anybody, Raymond. You just have to eat." He laughed, the real laugh, the one that had crinkled up his whole face during the game. He stood up, 6 feet tall again, and shook my hand. 2 pumps, steady, and he walked out. Miss Patricia stopped at the door and looked back at me. She said, "You know how many of them I bring places and nobody really looks at them?" I didn't answer. She said, "He's going to remember today for the rest of his life." She left. I sat in that green room for a while after that. Just sat. 3 months later I got a letter. Forwarded through 3 offices before it found me. The envelope written in the careful, deliberate handwriting of a man who had learned penmanship before ballpoint pens. Inside, a single page. I am not going to share all of it. But Raymond wrote this, and he told me I could. "I want you to know I am in a place now. A real place, with a door and a lock and heat. It is not much, but it is mine, and I sleep in it." Aaliyah started 3rd grade. She had everything she needed on the first day. She told me her teacher said she was the most prepared student in the class. I thought you would want to know that. No drama, no flourish, no performance, just the facts, reported steady, the way Raymond reported everything. He had a place. Aaliyah had her supplies. She was the most prepared student in the class. I folded that letter and put it in my desk, and I have not moved it since. So let me bring you back to the beginning. There is a difference between a man who has given up and a man who has been made to look like he has. You pass them every day. On the corner, on the bench outside the pharmacy, in the waiting room of the VA office with a 6-month wait for an appointment. They are 63 years old with ironed shirts and electrical tape on their shoes, and they are hungry and they are not asking for your pity. They need someone to see them. That is all Raymond needed from me. Not money. Not a speech. He needed someone to stop the show and say, "You told me the truth, and I am not going to pretend I didn't hear it." Don't be the person who looks through them. Don't be the person who smooths it over and keeps the show moving. If you feel that thing in your gut, that quiet, inconvenient thing that says this person is not okay, trust it. Ask the question. Stay for the answer. Because Raymond gave me 2 hours of honest answers in a green room, and I will spend the rest of my life being grateful I did not pivot away from the first 6 words. If this story moved you, do 3 things before you go. Subscribe, because this is a place where the people who got left behind get to be seen. Share this with one person you know who has served this country, or loves someone who has. And drop a word in the comments for Raymond. Just 1 word. Whatever this story put in your chest, put it down there. Because Raymond is out there somewhere, in his place, with a door and a lock and heat. And he deserves to know that 200 people in a studio were not the last ones to see him. God bless Raymond. God bless every veteran sleeping somewhere tonight who gave this country their best years and came home to find the door locked. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. I'll see you in the next one.